Welcome to another episode of Art One on One. I'm your pod boss, Nicole Jordan, alongside your professional artist and master educator, Mr. Berger.
I'm here on my sick bed,
Yeah, I'm trying to stay
live,
away from you.
live from the old sick bed. Golly, it's the worst. But here we are, making it all happen once again. Hopefully, um, we can uh, take a look at the live, and the chat, and everything looks to be good so far. Uh, as we go forward here. So I've got my tea, and what are you drinking? A
White
milk?
Russian.
You got a milkshake?
I have a White
Oh,
Russian today.
no. I thought you had like a milkshake,
No,
like something.
I do not. And you brought our cards today? Is this accurate?
I did, but it's like so. I apologize in advance if I sneeze, cough, hack, or otherwise. But I'll tell you what, I'm gonna bundle up here. It's like going through the airports and all the things that I've been doing the past couple of days. I've been through a traveling this past week. I've been through a traveling. I don't know what you call. What would you call it? Traveling road show. A traveling
You've just been on the road a lot and you
nightmare.
got stuck in the airport and
And you say I got sick from the airport. I think I might have gotten sick from the swimming pool. But
well, regardless. You were around a lot of people. You're flying. I mean, that seems to be
it's so.
like a normal thing when people come back from flying that they get some type of virus.
And you're around people, and I mean, people are gross. So,
Well, and swimming pools aren't
well,
the greatest either, but it is an outdoor pool you're in. I don't know.
well, and that's the thing. Like I don't know. I have a feeling that you're probably right. As much as I hate to admit it out loud, it probably is the airport. But
All right.
Anyway,
Well, this is a kind of a new format that we're doing that we are kind of flying by the seat of our pants here. So I'm going to mix it up today. And for the very first thing, I'm going to go back into the journey or go into Journey to the Archive. Journey into the Archive. I watched a video from a couple years ago. I just tried to pick something that I thought was interesting. There's really not a lot of like I was trying to find something relevant for today, but that I don't know. We're kind of winging it. So
yeah, I mean, we kind of put it together.
Yes.
We got dogs and kids and illness. So who knows? Who knows what you might encounter today?
So the video I watched, we'll see if you recall it from 2 years ago, was called Group F64.
Oh yeah, photography. Ansel Adams.
That's the only one that I actually recognized the name of on there was Ansel Adams.
Oh, okay. Well, and he's the most.
Would you say he is the most popular?
He's definitely the most famous of the Group 64 photographers, other than, is it Weston? Weston? There's a Weston.
There's 11 of them. I was actually going to see if you can name all 11 of them,
no,
but
there's no way. I mean, there's Imogene Cunningham and Ansel Adams, and there's a Weston.
Okay.
Help me.
I don't.
Well, you said you had a list of 11 of them.
No, I said there was 11 of them.
Well,
there was 11 of them when I watched the video, and I only recognized one of them.
Okay, well,
but I can tell you.
Of the 11.
You can name 2?
Well, I just named 3. So, I mean, I might be on my deathbed here, but I can count.
Yeah, I was going to see if I could pull them up here for you.
Oh.
But I don't think I can.
Okay, well.
So, then we're live. Oh, here. Okay. Here's the start of them. William something. Mortensen.
Okay. Don't know William Mortensen.
No?
I mean, like I said, some of these are more obscure photographers, and I'm not really. I mean, I'm not as up to date on my photography as I might have been 2 or 3 years ago. but you never know. Anyway,
Well,
I mean,
so,
you are as normal putting me on the spot a little bit
well, that's the point of it.
to put my
I am the pod
brain.
boss. The pod boss is supposed to guide the conversation, and sometimes you're going to be put on the spot.
Okay, well, here we go.
So, all right. Well, why don't you just tell us a little bit about like how these people decided to come together? Was this just one of a lot of different? I don't even know what you would call this
It's like
organization.
it's like a group of like-minded photographers.
So, how would you say they're like-minded? Because I was trying to figure out like how those
It's
11 came together.
it's all basically in the style in which they shoot. They don't do any tricks. They don't do any edits. They don't mess with their
It's very
negatives.
natural. Like what they take a picture of, they are portraying to the world.
It's very bare bones. This is like there are certain rules that they take their photos by. They use certain rules, which is where they get their name. Group F64 comes from the f stop that I don't know. They're named after the f stop.
Which is the smallest aperture on their cameras at that time.
Right. Well,
Which I don't know what that means. But
they're large.
what is aperture?
Aperture is the hole that the light goes through. So if you have a camera, well, like I don't know, any camera, the light goes in the big lens or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the aperture. The light goes through there, and it is captured.
Okay.
At that time onto the film. Now it's digitally captured. But I'm gonna adjust this a little bit. Oh gosh, I feel like. Oh, there we go. I feel like we're like
I don't know why I'm getting closer to you. Yeah.
Because you are down with the sickness.
So, like for instance, and I'm not. You're gonna say something to me.
I
but
will.
The people that we really liked at the art show in Des Moines, where they're putting in those lights and then taking photography with those added lights, and they would not be a part of this group because that is not a natural, like that would have been an added.
That's generally correct. I mean, they're shooting a completely different way than Ansel Adams. They're using external lights.
Correct.
They are shooting in color as opposed to black and white. They're shooting man-made things in nature that have been kind of like abandoned buildings.
Right.
We're talking about a husband-wife photography couple known as the Flash Knights. Flash Knights. KNIGHTS. Are you sure? Or is it NITES?
I don't. You said KNI. I don't know.
No, it's not K. It's NITES.
That's what I think it is too. Flash. FLASHNITES.
Yeah.
I could look it up and see.
Flash Knights with an N, not as in on guard or.
Yeah, those knights.
'Tis but a flesh wound.
Oh my gosh.
The Black Knight always prevails.
Yes, it is. Theflashknights.com.
Anyway, we've seen them at the Des Moines Art Festival a couple of different times. We have talked about purchasing one of their large format metal prints, which I'm certainly not opposed to.
Right.
Still, but whatever.
So I think
the point is that they're taking photography. They're capturing their photography in a completely different way than what Ansel Adams would have done.
They call it pure photography, or I think that's what you referenced as. I
could have.
That doesn't mean anything to you when I say pure photography?
No, it does. I mean, that makes sense because that's what they were. They didn't mess with the photos or the negatives. There was no funny business.
Yeah, there was no like editing or
pardon me,
airbrushing back in the day anyway.
Well, there was such a thing as airbrushing. I mean,
back during the Depression?
Oh yeah.
Really?
I mean, photo edits have been, you could do some wild stuff in the lab. Yeah.
Really? Even back then?
Yep. Yeah. With very limited tools, you can do certain techniques like dodging, burning. You can do all kinds of different things to make your print darker or lighter in tone throughout the image. Um, there you can splice negatives together. You could do all kinds of things. You take one sky out, put another sky in. You could do all kinds of things with virtually no technology at all, just a enlarger and a solid plan. I mean, you could do it. But
Interesting.
the point is that Ansel Adams and his crew, this particular group, did not participate in any of that sort of shenaniganery.
And it was a wide range. It wasn't just like pictures of people or landscapes or things like that. It was
Each photographer approached it their own way. Ansel Adams did a little bit more. Edward Weston.
you keep
I think it's Edward Weston. He was most famous for taking photos of people, but also vegetables.
flowers, landscapes. Yeah, okay. Edward Weston.
Edward Weston. Okay.
No. I'm reiterating what you're saying. I'm
Oh.
not.
Well,
I am trying to look in here and see who the artists were, but I swear you said it early on in the video, and I can't find it early on in the
this
video.
is why, like, if you're gonna watch a video, it wouldn't hurt you to take a note or two.
I did take a note or two, but I'm not going to write down all 11 in there.
No.
It's just not, that doesn't.
But you're gonna quiz me on.
Well, I want to see who you know, because I
could have said
like
anything.
I told you I only knew. I'm going to play it and then I'm going to watch it.
I could have said anything.
But well, you could have, but my point is there was only one like I recognize like as someone that's pretty
Imogene Cunningham.
No, it was Ansel Adams. That was it. I told you that.
She was the boss, man.
There was another one that I thought I kind of recognized the name of, but I don't know.
She was something. Actually,
but I do like. So it was all black
and white.
Video
on her just to interrupt you.
Ansel Adams, Imogene Cunningham, John Paul Edwards, Preston Holder, Consuela Kanaga, Alma Levinson, Sonia, no idea, Henry Swift, Willard Van Dyke, Brett Weston. Not even close. No. Edward Weston.
Edward Weston's the dad. Brett is the son.
Ta-da! You didn't even name any of those, did you?
Weston, I did. Imogene Cunningham, I did.
Weston is a last name. You didn't name Brett or Edward or whatever his name was.
Oh,
I was going to ask you your favorite, but if you don't even remember who the hell they were, then I guess you're not going to have a favorite.
I mean, if I had to say who was my favorite, I think I'd probably Ansel Adams, the leader of the pack. Vroom vroom.
Was he the one that organized and brought the group together?
Him and Weston did.
And there were mixed feelings about them because some people thought they were kind of like that. You interviewed two of the men that were in the group, and I think they weren't as well received as they thought they would be. Kind of people were jealous that they were, that they started this, but there wasn't other groups were they
there were other groups that did things completely different. And as a matter of fact, it was East Coast, West Coast. This is pre-Biggie, Tupac type East Coast, West Coast, but very similar in that there was a very different approach. The New York photographers, were they very territorial? No, I wouldn't say they weren't like get off my turf, homie.
Well, I mean,
but they were
they're artists.
They very much felt that their art was the right way. Their approach was the right way. And so you had Alfred Stieglitz, who had his photography group in New York on the East Coast, and they very much said, this is the way we do it. This is how photography is supposed to be done. And you had Um, and again, they were in New York on the West Coast. You had Double A Ansel Adams, the big time heavy hitter from San Francisco, taking photography, and all of his renegades doing it. And so you had this very polarizing group of photographers that approached art very different, the photography very differently. How they would capture this
I don't
work of
understand
beauty.
how they thought it was the right way. Like their way was the right way. When you're talking art, there really is no right way.
But okay, but you're thinking as a person living in 2024. Put yourself in 1920. There was a right way to make art and a wrong way to make art. If you were making art with abstraction, you were doing it wrong. If you were doing things other than what was common thread to society, you're not an artist, you're a psychopath. Get out of here, you. And so there's a lot of that. And we see that throughout history. We can look back now and say, we recognize that, all types of art are accepted, but there was a point where Picasso's cubism was thought to be revolutionary and out of this world. There was a time that Vincent van Gogh's paintings of capturing one's feelings and emotions in a landscape was, what the hell is that mess? What is he doing? He's doing it wrong. There was a time when painting things that were dark or or whatever was wrong. There was a
Like
time,
romanticism, you're saying?
well, sure. Goya and his black paintings, it was an abomination. You have, I mean, so you can go back throughout time, and there's lots and lots of times where people were doing things wrong, even with something like photography, which wasn't even accepted at the time that we're talking about. It wasn't even accepted as an art form. It was a craft. And it wasn't until 1950 that photography became accepted as a true art form. And um, largely because of painters and others that were influenced by photography that said, no, this is like an art on its own, not just a craft or a hobby or
Remind me what your definition of a craft is. I'm trying to decide why it's not a craft. And you've
well,
kind of talked to me about this before.
a craft is something that is oftentimes created for the purpose of
It's like a
replication.
duplicate. Okay, yeah.
Whereas in art, you kind of bring your own
But
perspective, your own.
photography is a duplication. If you think about it, you're
It is.
taking a picture. So it's basically a duplication of whatever is in front of you or that you're taking. So how
Okay.
is that not a craft?
Well, you are in the camp of Alfred Stieglitz, because that's what he would say. You're just simply duplicating what's in front of you. What you're doing, Ansel Adams, is a craft. But no, 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 Ansel Adams says. No, no, no. I'm taking measurements. I'm thinking about time. I'm metering the light. I'm looking at all of these things to get my camera to be set up perfectly to capture things that may enhance the way you see it, not just
But
your
he's
eye.
not. He's doing it in pure form. So that to me is a craft.
But-
Now, if you were
but
doing
pure
like
form-
the flash nights,
Okay, but you're double talking a little bit, and you're talking over me. So calm down, slow your roll.
okay,
I might be sick,
I'm not talking over you.
but you are.
You talked, and then I listened, and
Oh,
then
no.
I started to talk.
The point is, lady, that you are in the camp of Alfred Stieglitz.
Got it.
And Alfred Stieglitz doesn't just take photos. He wants to enhance things and manipulate the negative of what he has. He'll capture images and he'll tweak and enhance that negative to be the best image possible. Now, going back to Ansel Adams, even though it's straight photography, even though it's non-manipulated, that doesn't mean that he's not taking measurements. That doesn't mean that he's not.
What does that mean, taking measurements?
Okay, so you measure the amount of light that's going through the air. You tell your camera, I want you to take the photo at this speed, with this aperture, at this rate, to allow the light to come through at a very specific rate.
He's still not changing anything. He's
No.
just capturing it in a way that he
But-
wants to.
but
To
he's-
me,
but
that
he-
is craft.
But he's measuring the amount of light that's coming through and the rate at which it pours. That makes a difference.
Mm.
If I have a hole this big and I have it for 1/100th of a second, and I have a hole this big at 1/1000th of a second, it's going to change the image. It's going to be a completely different image. And that's where the math and the science and all of those things come into play. You can't just, photography is much, much more than what we give it credit for, especially in today's world where photography is simply picking up a cell phone and pushing a button. That's the basic essence of what we know as photography in today's world. And it's a lot more sophisticated than that. It's a lot more sophisticated than
It used to be.
let the phone just
It
take the
used
picture.
to be, but now it's not. The phone does it for you.
If you're taking pictures with a phone, you're right. But when I take photos with my DSLR, or if somebody's taking photos, we were just talking with somebody that they have their husband goes out and takes photos of the night sky, and they have technologies that make so that it moves and pivots so that the stars don't have streaks and all of these things that are very precise, very perfected, to say to that person, you know what? Anybody can do what you're doing. It's a craft. It's kind of an insult.
Okay. I agree with you after listening to you.
Thank you. I'm glad I've convinced you of the right way.
I don't know necessarily it's the right way, but
It is.
Okay.
It's hard. There is no right
Oh
way
my
or
God,
wrong way.
Stop being.
Oh.
All right. So, anything else you want to touch on the group F-64 that you thought was interesting? Or
I haven't watched that video in 100 years. I don't even know what's in it. So you tell me what's interesting, and I'll tell you if you're right or not.
I just thought it was interesting, like the purity of like their art, and it was all black and white. It wasn't like
Yeah.
when did black and white photography go to color?
Color's we've had the ability to take color photos for a
So
long,
they were just
long,
choosing
long,
at
long-
this time.
It was very, very expensive. It's like, okay, when did we choose to stream videos instead of buying them on DVD? Well, we always had the ability to stream as long as we've had the internet.
Makes
We
me
could
think of
stream.
Redbox. Like forever, I just had to do Redbox because I couldn't afford to.
Right. And so it's like,
stream.
so we've always had that technology. It's just how it's being used. And so and it's very true in terms of photography. We've had the scientific way to create color
Color.
photos. Like, for example, color photography, color movies. Okay. Movies were not predominantly in color until the 1960s. But think back. In the 1930s, they made The Wizard of Oz. But that's which is why The Wizard of Oz was so spectacular, because you have that shift of everything is black and white, and now it's in color. Holy
Well, and did we
bananas.
talk about this? How AI people are using AI? I think we did. People are
We've talked
using
about
AI,
AI several times.
to take old black and white photos and make them
Yeah.
color. Did we talk about that in here? Though?
I don't know if we talked
I don't
about
know
it
either,
on here,
but I think
know
that's
that it's
so
happening.
so cool. Like just to bring those pictures to light. And obviously there's going to be some, like we were looking at sports pictures and things like that.
The
And
colors are, like
yeah,
purples and blues.
they're
And
a little bit off,
it
but
gets a
like
little
the blues could be
murky.
purples. Yeah, but not hugely. Like I think it's just cool. Like people that are in those photos, I think it's way cool that to see those come
Right.
from the black and white and see that transition.
But you're kind of getting off topic here a little bit. Pod boss, you're supposed to be directing the conversation.
Well, I just think it's interesting. I think that's cool.
Not
people may not know that you
track.
can take those black and white photos and use AI to. I think that is a really cool feature. And like, I don't know.
But there may be people out there that are like, well, but like back in the day, like my parents graduated from high school in the 1950s, but they had the capability, like they had color photos, like their senior pictures were in color, but they were hand colored, they were hand painted. So they weren't processed in a colored way. They were just painted in a colored way. And now they're using digital technologies to do the painting, so to speak.
Right. And I think a lot of people may not know that's out there.
But that process, the process of color photography, which is a completely different negative type, color negatives are different than black and white negatives. The film is completely different. The process and the chemistry is different. But regardless of that, the point is that capability has been around for a long, long time. It's just a matter, or the point is that because of expense, people didn't do it.
Got it.
We have a question from the Peanut Gallery. What do you think about early Christian art? I'm not religious, but I find ancient religious art fascinating.
What do you think of? What was the original question? What do you think of?
What do you think of early Christian art?
Well, so you can answer the question, and I'm going to piggyback off of that because that's actually like
one of your favorite things.
Well,
you like that. You like that Gothic early Christian art. Now,
I do love that. Like when we're in a museum, that is definitely my favorite
zone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you answer that question because I don't know exactly what that entails, but then I'm going to talk a little bit about there's something I wanted to talk about today, and it kind of ties in with that. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that early Christian art is pretty fascinating. Again, I think that the Gothic time period has lots of really great examples of altars and paintings and sculptures. The Renaissance folks that would follow those Gothic times, those medieval times, those dark ages of sorts, they would probably say, well, it's not accurate because they've elongated the forms, they've distorted, they're not paying attention to proportion, they're not paying attention to 1 point or 2 point perspective. They have lost all of the things that the Greeks and the Romans brought to the table. They have basically thrown it out and said, look, we're going to do it our own way, and we don't care about that stuff. And many people would say that the artists of that time were more focused on the religious side of the artifact or the art as opposed to the perfect rendering of what was in that. But we have lots of great things coming out of it. The stained glass windows, which is, some may argue, is a craft, but unbelievably beautiful all the same. You have the wooden sculptures and the stone work, and all of those things that were being done were absolutely incredible.
Is it more structural things during that time frame? I feel like there's a lot of like you said, like sculptures and wood and stone, and would that time frame have been, more like less paintings and things like that, and more? I'm trying to think if that's what I liked about it.
Most everything was more for a purpose. You know, they created the gargoyles because the gargoyles were going to be the drain spouts that shot the water out away from the building. And they created, you know, the adornments to tell a story, because most of the people at this time were illiterate. So they were trying to get people to recognize the story, which is why a lot of the saints and different people would carry certain things. They would wear certain colors. They were, you know, there was a certain um
Well, like a different stuff, like even nowadays for me, like carrying different crystals or stones or things like that. Or
but it's very different in that, like, for example, um you know, like Saint Bartholomew, he always carries a knife and he carries a filleted skin. He always carries those things because of how he was martyred. um Saint Denis, he always carries his head. His head was cut off and he carries his head around. And so those are things where it's like, I know that's who that is because this is what they're doing or this is what they're carrying. Um, and so, and then that in turn ties into oftentimes their story. Um, Certain saints, again, wear certain colors and so on and so forth.
so that would be my favorite era. I don't know if that's the right word, but
Yeah.
what is yours? I know you're gonna say like I know you're gonna say I like everything from, but if like you don't have a certain one that just really stands out to you as far as like
No, I think
I
they're
don't know how you
I
can't.
think they're all important.
I didn't say they're not all important. I'm
And
just saying which one calls you
and
like
one ties into the next. Now, there are certain artists
that's a cop out.
from different time periods that I gravitate to more than others. There are certain arts that I appreciate more strongly than others. But yeah, I like Gothic art. I like the architecture. I like going into those old cathedrals and buildings. Uh, you know, going into Sainte Chapelle, which is a very prominent, famous um, medieval um, church. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And I think like I like that time frame of art because I think there's a lot of spiritual representation during that
Mhm.
time and like religious. And I wouldn't say I was a religious person. I would say I'm a spiritual person, right? I've said that
Right.
before. And so my topic of conversation, which we may get to a card, maybe we won't, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the book I've been reading
Okay.
called The Artist's Way. And it's called The Artist's Way, and it's
You've said that.
about creativity. Yeah, it's about like the main, I don't know, the main focus of this book, or the way she feels, is that everyone is born creative.
Okay.
Like maybe we lose that, maybe we're blocked by certain things, but every single person is born creative.
Okay.
And I love the quote. Like I was reading the book, I don't know, I was reading different things in the book and highlighting. And one of the quotes from the book says, just as blood is a fact of your physical body and nothing you invented, creativity is a fact of your spiritual body and nothing you must invent. So I wanted to get your feelings on that.
Say the quote one more time for me.
Just as blood is a fact of your physical body and nothing you invented,
Right.
creativity is a fact of your spiritual body
Right.
and nothing you must invent. Meaning it's innate.
True.
Everybody is born a creative, just maybe somewhere along the lines
I think we're all born with some level of creativity. And the reason that I know that to be true is that I've been in rooms filled with kindergartners. And I've been in rooms filled with adults. And when you're in a room filled with kindergartners and little tiny kids, even preschoolers, these kids, you tell them we're going to make up a game. They'll come up with the rules. They'll figure it out. They'll come up with a solution. All right, well, we got these things, and they're like, well, let's take the things from this game, and let's take rules from that game, and let's take this thing, and oh, let's do this. And it's like a land of make-believe, and they put all of these things together, and they will cobble together a game in some form or fashion. Now, whether or not anybody can actually win or play that game is another question, but that doesn't matter. The point is that they will put it together. You tell a group of adults to do the exact same thing. Well, what is the game? Well, we have to play it on a game board because games have to be confined to a game board. And, well, how are we going to have money? Are we going to have points? How do we know who wins? Well, and then they'll come up with they might come up with a game, but it's going to be really, really tight. It's going to be really, really, it's going to.
I think that depends on the person.
It's going to look well.
It depends on the people that are creating that.
But again, I'm just saying a random pool of people.
Right.
They would probably, it would look like Monopoly over and over and over again, or it would look like something that you've probably seen before, where the kids will be all over the place.
Right.
And
that's where she says, like, in order to develop your creativity or enhance your creativity, if you feel like you've lost that, there's easy ways to do that. Like,
for sure.
And the biggest thing is that, or that's kind of the big things that one of the big things that she focuses on is that somewhere along the line, we create or have blockages, like ego, or being told that our artwork is terrible, or, like no confidence or whatever. And so, like, in order to find that creativity, a lot of times it's just removing those blocks or those thoughts or those limitations that we've had put on us as a child. So what you're saying makes sense, because, usually children in preschool, kindergarten, they haven't experienced those, as much of that, where they've been told that their artwork is terrible, or they're not creative, or this or that or whatever. But she says that, like, in order to eliminate those blockages, you just need to, like, get in the routine of writing, like write, or draw. And then, like, she says, create a date with art, like once a month or whatever, where you.
And what does she, like, there's a time frame, right? Like so many minutes or so many hours
a
day
or something. Well, first of all, which this is so interesting, like, she wants you to get up in the morning right away and write then, because she says ego is, like, less, like, you're fresh, you've slept, you're like kind of in that state where you're kind of still, you're not sleeping, but kind of in that dream state or whatever, where ego is less to get involved. So you just get up right away and write.
You're not answering my question.
Right away when you get up, you're supposed to write, and you're supposed to write 3 pages.
How many minutes?
No minutes, 3 pages. Whatever comes to mind. She calls it, like, brain dumping or something like that. And it doesn't matter. You could write and say, you could be writing, I don't know what I'm supposed to write, and this seems silly to me, and blah, 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 blah. But she's like, eventually stuff will start to come out.
Keep going.
Stuff will start to come out. Like,
stuff will start to come out.
Yeah. So she's saying there is no wrong answer to what you write. Just wake up, write 3 pages every day as soon as you wake up, and don't miss a day. You feel like shit, don't miss a day. You didn't sleep all night, don't miss, like, do it for, I think she says 12 weeks, and don't write it or don't read it. Really? You're going to blow your nose on alive.
Yeah. What am I going to do? I'm going to snot all over myself?
I don't know. But don't read it, which I kind of want to know why. Maybe that's because then you'll get in your own head and be like, oh, that's shit, and I don't know why I'm writing that or whatever. I think that probably makes sense. But don't read anything you wrote for 12 weeks. Write every morning 3 pages for 12 weeks, whatever comes to your mind, or draw. I think she says write, though, but in my mind, I was like, I'm going to draw or write, because I love both of those.
Well, I'm kind of implementing a kind of a similar thing in my classroom this year. It's not quite so open-ended as what you're suggesting, but
yeah,
I'm doing a
just
very
to kind
similar,
of, like, have them tap into their creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great. I think just giving that openness and letting kids know, or adults, like me, myself included, nothing is wrong. Like, just write what comes to mind, draw what comes to mind, and then go back and look at it in 12 weeks and see what you. And if you listen to a lot of, I tend to watch a lot of, or listen to a lot of audiobooks and writers, and because
Yeah.
eventually I would love to write a book. And the thing I've been hearing the most often lately is that the books that people have ended up, oh gosh, what's the word I'm
Written.
publishing,
Right.
publishing are ones they never thought would be books in the beginning. Like when they were writing them and just like writing whatever, came to their mind at the time, they thought it was just crap or nothing. And that's what ended up being the ones that they published, which is what she says in The Artist's Way as well. And so I don't know, we're kind of getting off topic, but
Yep.
but that's kind of where we're.
But that's okay.
That's what we're.
It's okay to get off topic a little bit.
I think it was cool that she brought up the spiritual or the Christian art, and allowed me to tie that in, because that is really what I wanted to talk about today.
I don't understand how that ties into Christian art at all.
Just the spiritual, like I love the spiritual side of art.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And so when she was talking about Christian art, that is kind of interchangeable to me. Christian,
well, you
spiritual.
assume it's a female. It could.
Oh, he or she. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I just said that, not even assuming anything. It just came out of my mind.
Wow.
But anyway, so we're 41 minutes in.
Yep.
Would you like to pull a card?
I think we should.
Okay.
This is our newest segment that we've been attempting to do called Art Talk. What?
Can I show the book?
I suppose.
I do want to show the book.
Let's plug the book that isn't plugging us.
Well, it doesn't. It's okay. This is not a selfish thing. This is like, I think this is a really cool book for people that are trying to like explore their creativity. I think this is a really good book. It's called The Artist's Way, and it's by Julia Cameron.
Oh, Julia Cameron.
Yeah.
Julia Child he does another kind of thing.
So I'm gonna pick
You're gonna pick a card.
Okay.
You're gonna pick the Art Talk card. Pick a card, any card.
This one right here. I told you, breathing on me.
Well, then hurry up and pick a dang card. Jesus.
I'm trying.
How long does it take, lady? Oh, go ahead and read it to us.
All right. So it says, some works of art are inspired by literature. A sculpture of a mermaid sunning herself on a rock was inspired by Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale. The Little Mermaid statue was created in 1913 by Edvard Eriksson for Copenhagen Harbor in Denmark.
I've been there.
Really?
Yeah, it was really kind of cool.
Oh, sweet. Okay, so that's the preface. And now the question is, if you could create a work of art based on a favorite book or story, what literary work would be your inspiration?
Would be I've done this.
If you could create a work of art, you have. I know what you're going to say here, but you can share that with other people.
I've done a series based on the Book of Romans, which is the Bible. I did I started a illustrated something or other on the Wizard of Oz, and I've done Candide by Voltaire. I started that. I've started several different literary projects based on literary works. What were you thinking? I was thinking
The Bible.
Oh,
yeah. That's the only one I knew of. I didn't know about the other ones you just talked about.
I started. There have been a couple times that I've started things like that, and it just kind of started the process, and then kind of got out. Yeah, I just kind of got away from it.
So, how many do you have out there right now?
What do you mean?
Arts based on literary.
Well,
art projects based on literary.
I've got one project that's actively being pursued, but that's it.
Okay.
That's the Book of Romans one.
And-
But I haven't touched that in probably 2 or 3 years.
Well, because you started your maps and
Just kind of off onto another thing. Although I still have all the stuff. I mean, there's still potential there for it to be picked up again. At any rate.
all right. Again, spiritual. It's a spiritual thing. Interesting. That's kind of
Yeah.
a hot topic today.
I guess.
Yeah.
But Hans Christian, like when I was in Copenhagen, in Denmark, I mean, number one, the country was beautiful, the people were nice, the food was fantastic, but it was interesting, like, to go past his house where he lived. And
Edvard Eriksson?
no,
Who?
the guy that wrote the Hans Christian Andersen.
Oh.
I don't know Edvard Anderson, whoever that is.
The person who created the statue.
I don't know anything about him. He's new on me.
So Hans Christian Andersen, you went and saw his home.
Yes. And I saw a statue of him in a little square area. Yeah.
What other types of art did you see there?
They have a really nice museum there. Really nice museum. They've got a copy of The Burghers of Calais by Rodin there. They've got some really neat. They have some interesting Gothic works, early Christian work, Byzantine works. They all kinds of different religious sorts of focused things. They've got several, if I recall correctly, several heads of like Roman emperors and stuff like that. I think they've got a couple heads of Caligula, like sculptures of Caligula there and things like that. Yeah, really neat.
Sweet.
Anyway,
Right.
and they also had this amusement park, and they had like some amazing rides. I know you wouldn't be interested in that. You don't like fun like that.
Speaking of off topic.
But they have a really nice amusement park there in Copenhagen.
Hmm.
And it's like every like different areas are like different parts of the world. So they have like this part that looks like Germany, and it's got like a little you got the big beer steins and the pretzels and the whole thing, and then you go like there's a part that's a little bit more like Chinese, like with the I don't know, and then the rides are themed to the area. So they have the Red Baron, so it's like a red airplane, and it spins around like in a loop-de-loo, and that's the ride in the
None of
German
that sounds
part.
good to me. Yeah.
They got like a Viking area, and then they have a big boat that swings and stuff like that,
Well, there you go.
Anyway,
Copenhagen.
Yeah, that's a good. I'd like to go back to Copenhagen.
When did you go there?
I don't remember. It was several years ago, probably like 2014, 2015, maybe. Something like that, somewhere in that neighborhood.
All right. Well, any other comments or anything like that we need to
I don't believe so.
talk about before we call it a night?
I think that's it. We can call it good.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're going to call it a night here. I don't know. We covered some fun things. A little off topic, but especially with you being under the weather. You stayed strong for a while. Do not just wait till we're done.
Well, hurry it up then.
All right. So thanks for watching, everyone. Please hit like, share, subscribe. Support us in any of those ways if you can. And have a great night. Really?
Well, you're taking too dang long.
Oh.
I know, right?